I'd like to call to order the 203rd meeting of the Equal Employment Practice Commission. Today, September 9th, 2016. And the next order of business will be the approval of minutes of the meeting of June 16th, 2016. Do we approve of the minutes?
Do we need a motion?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, then the third item would be the audit status report.
Okay, usually I do the audit status report, but Judith's been heavily involved in the audits lately, so Judith,
Great.
do me the honors.
Good morning. So, as you can see, there are 14 final determinations that have been issued, which means that we've had agencies going through the audit process quite quickly. And when they've received their preliminary determination, they have responded quickly. And so we keep everything moving, and as you can see, we have quite a few agencies that have had final determinations, and many of them have been issued prior to today. Yet the resolution is here for your signature, and those agencies, many have already started compliance, have responded to their to the final determination. So everything is moving quite well.
Sounds great.
So what we're doing now is when the audits go out, we send them in the CRON file, we send a weekly CRON file to the commission members, and we don't hold the audits until the commission votes, because it holds up the audit process. So we inform you, and then we present the resolutions at the meeting.
Okay. You want me to
The final determinations.
Okay. Okay, so what the final determinations are as follows. Resolution 2016/008, Office of the Actuary. Resolution 2016-054, Civilian Complaint Review Board. Resolution 2016-072, Department of Correction. Resolution 2016-226, City Commission on Human Rights, pending response. Resolution 2016-463, Bronx Community College. Resolution 2016-464, Queensborough Community College. Resolution 2016-465, Kingsborough Community College. Resolution 2016-466, Borough of Manhattan Community College. Resolution 2016, Ostos Community College. Wow, that worked. Resolution 2016-469, Fiorello LaGuardia Community College, pending response. Resolution 2016-903, Office of the Kings County District Attorney. Resolution 2016-904, Office of the Queens County District Attorney. Resolution 2016-905, Office of the Richmond County District Attorney. Resolution 2016-942, Office of the Bronx County Public Administrator, yes. It's 14, that's a lot of work. Oh my God. Everybody in agreement with these reports?
Motion to accept as presented.
Okay.
Okay, the two City Commission on Human Rights and LaGuardia Community College are pending a response. Usually we receive the response within 14 days of issuing the final determination, and then the agency goes into the compliance monitoring period. It's at the compliance monitoring period that the commission, we hold the determination of compliance for the commission to vote. Those we won't send beforehand. We always give the commission the final word on whether or not an agency is in compliance or not in compliance. So Maureen's going to give us compliance status on a report on compliance monitoring.
Good morning. Currently, right now, there are 19 agencies that are in compliance monitoring. 7 agencies are in their second month, so this is sort of, the reports are trickling in because the reports come in the first week of every month. But because it was a holiday, a lot of agencies haven't submitted their responses yet. But so far so good, especially with, we're using the automated Team Central. So agencies are uploading their responses directly to Team Central. I receive a notification to my inbox that they submitted something, and I can immediately review it and then send feedback. And then the agency also receives an email letting them know where they are in compliance monitoring and whether the documentation that they've submitted has been accepted or not. So it sort of streamlines the process, makes it a little bit more easier to sort of compartmentalize the documents in the agencies. So that's where we are with compliance monitoring. I believe there's one agency that has completed compliance, and that is Queens County Public Administrator, and they've completed it through Team Central. So they're the first agency to actually go through the process and complete it. And initially there were a few issues because the agencies that were not on the city system didn't have access, but the analysts as well as DoIT has worked with the agencies to get them onto Team Central, and I believe almost all of the agencies are able to access. Maybe a few have not been able to. They're still working some of the technical issues, but for those agencies that are not on Team Central, we still require them to put in a response, and they do the same traditional paper format. There is one agency that I foresee we might have an issue with, and that's Richmond Public Administrator. They don't have a computer, so I don't know how.
Nowadays,
They're going to
I don't believe.
So we had to send them a paper format for them to actually fill out and then mail in documents, so they may take a while. So those are the agencies that are from this cycle. We do have two agencies from the previous audit cycle, and that is Teachers Retirement System and the Fire Department. First with Teachers Retirement System, they take a little bit longer. They're a smaller agency, they're understaffed. They're not at all recalcitrant, they want to comply, they just don't have the manpower or sometimes the knowledge, they don't know how to comply. So what I've done is I've broken up the corrective actions. So they have to respond to every week and a half. I have a phone conference with them, I talk to them, and I walk them through the process. So they completed 9 out of 14 corrective actions. The remaining 5 has to do with the annual plan and the assessments, which are a little bit more heavier, and I left that for last for them to do. So I foresee them completing probably by the next commission meeting. And Fire Department, Meredith will go over that in more detail, but the Fire Department has completed 8 out of the 9 corrective actions. There's just 1 remaining. And once, I guess, we discuss what we're going to go through and what we're going to require of them, then I foresee them complying. They've been complying with all of our requests thus far.
The Team Central is the commission-developed web platform, is that right?
Right.
Yes.
And then how many agencies, like, do you have a sense of how many are using it, or are they?
The 19 agencies that are.
All 19 are not using it because I believe Office of the Actuary still does not have access. But the community colleges, I believe they have access now. They have not signed on yet, but they have access. And the public administrators, they didn't have access before, but they have access now, so they should be submitting their responses into Team Central. Getting them to do it is a different story, but they should be submitting it into Team Central.
So when at the stage of the final determination, we request a response and we send a manual that we created. I think Aisha, did Aisha do a presentation on the manual?
No, she presented it, but she didn't do a presentation.
Right, so yes, she created it.
So Aisha created a manual that we send with the final determination, and it explains how to log into TeamMate to respond to the final determination. It took a lot of work to create the manual. But I asked Aisha if she can do a presentation for the commission, maybe next meeting, so that you guys can see what we do and what the system looks like. But we haven't had any problems outside of the technical issues that DoIT may be helping us with in terms of getting them access. We really haven't had any problems with people being able to use the manuals. So we're glad about that. Okay.
And there's one resolution to be voted on for Queens County Public Administrator.
What was that?
There's one resolution that the commission has to vote on.
Under 4A.
Oh, this one. Oh, okay. Oh, resolution 2016/944-12C, termination of compliance monitoring period required. Okay. And then 62016 and to 9/2016 by Queens County Public Administrator. All in agreement? Thank you. All right, the next item is agencies currently in compliance monitoring.
No, actually, now we're
We did
at
it.
research.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so you want a second? Sure.
Doesn't want to go home.
Can you guys see that, or is that,
I'm sorry?
is that visible enough to everybody?
You might want to shut one of the lights.
Is it,
Yeah.
just one of them?
No. How does that work? It's a good.
Okay, we need to bring up, I'm gonna have us zoom the camera so that it can be visible.
Should we wait?
Are you turning off all the lights, or you need some of them on? I think you should turn some of them on.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
fine.
That's
Thank
good.
you. Okay.
I think you're upset.
Good. Okay, thanks. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you again. So I'm going to give you an update on what the research unit has been up to, just briefly touching on a few things, and then as Sheree said, we'll go into more depth in the next meeting, particularly with what we talked about. So I'm going to go over the research unit goal. That's what's been guiding us in our planning. And then I'll talk about new directions in accessing evidence, new directions in locating risk, and then I'll talk about a few sample findings from both the FDNY and from the Occupational Segregation Report. So this is the research unit goal. It's a mouthful, so I'm going to break it up into little pieces. But just reading it together, the Commission, the City, and individual agencies will have relevant evidence about patterns of employment practices and outcomes in order to better develop and maintain effective procedures, programs, and policies that support equal opportunity. Very long sentence. So this first section is who we serve, the Commission, the City, and individual agencies. That's who the research unit serves. The second one is what we provide, so relevant evidence about patterns of employment practices and outcomes. And then the third is why we provide it, to develop and maintain effective procedures, programs, and policies that support equal opportunity. Okay, now, so this is how we used to get our data. We still get it in this form. It is unpleasant to look at. And I don't expect you to be able to read any of that. It's hard to look at even if it's hard copy. So we recently revolutionized the way that we can access this data. This is our core data coming from DCAS, the SEEDS data, on underutilization, workforce composition. Everything that we're super interested in is coming to us most of it is coming to us in this format. It's a PDF file. So the problem with this is that it's static, right? So you can only see one agency. So this is the Department of Environmental Protection. It's the job group for managers, and it's for the most recent quarter that we have. But you can only see one of those things at a time. You can only see this particular job group, this particular agency, and this particular quarter, which means that you can't easily compare. You have to go find another piece of paper and track it down. And then another problem with this is that the important information is actually hidden in here. It's not as easy to pull out. So you have both the groups that we care about in terms of protected groups, and then you also have white and male as well. So you have to sort of really look deep to figure out what you want to pull out. And then there's a bunch of information in there that might be useful, but in a sort of secondary way, but that last column is the one that we really want to focus on. But again, the ones we really care about are the U's. We don't really care about the O's or the N's. So the important information, the U's means it's underutilized. So the important information is sort of hidden within all this information that we don't actually really need. And then the last problem with it is that it's very hard to easily calculate anything. You have to take the data, you have to enter it in, then you have to calculate it, or you have to hand calculate it. There's no easy way to manipulate this data. So since this is our primary source of data where we do a lot of our analyses, we took the time to figure out how to convert PDFs into Excel files. It's not an easy process, but we got there, and then we created pivot tables on top of them. So pivot tables are interactive ways of manipulating data.
What was the PDF originally made from?
It was a printout from a database. Yeah.
It's a PDF and a well,
But a PDF, but you know, a PDF was always made of something.
I know,
Right, and it's
that's-
like, why
that's-
can't they send you the raw data, just
Yeah.
yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Feels like this should have been solved 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So, but we have a way now. We have a way now. So this is a pivot table. The great thing about pivot tables is that they are completely, yes, they pivot, exactly. They're completely, you can manipulate them however way you want. I can drag and drop and highlight and not highlight, calculate anything you want with the data. So what you have here is the same data, except more of it. So this is Agency 826, is the Department of Environmental Protection again at the top. And then we're only looking at, it'll say underutil, multiple items, we're only looking at where underutilization occurred. So those are the ones. And then we're actually looking at multiple quarters and multiple job groups. So multiple quarters across the top and multiple job groups. So we're looking at all the job groups. No, not all the job. The first page of job groups, sorry, I couldn't put them all on this slide, but a whole bunch of job groups and a whole bunch of quarters. So you can see that we are pulling out, and on the left there you see we're only looking at protected groups. So we're pulling out the data that we care about. We can compare, so we can compare the job groups, we can compare the quarters, and then we can also do quick summaries. So at the grand total at the right, you can see which groups in which protected groups in which job groups had underutilization across all the quarters. So you can see that the managerial job group is actually having a kind of a hard time. Okay.
Can I just ask a question about this? So like 9, group 9, so that's a different job category, like within management, am I correct?
It's a different job group.
A job group,
Yeah.
but it's like, that's only for Black, regardless of gender, right? Is that right?
So it's only pulling out the protected groups that have underutilization.
Okay.
So that means in job group 9, which off the top of my head I don't remember what job group 9 is. Sorry about that. It might be like service workers or
Yeah.
something like that.
Uh-huh.
Only Black people.
Had experience under, but they didn't in 2016, most of
Exactly.
2016? Okay.
Exactly.
Right, right.
Yep. Okay. So, with this new powerful way of accessing our data, we can answer all sorts of new questions. How does an agency's underutilization of a particular group change over time? So that's what we just saw. The second question is from another SEEDS report on workforce composition, and actually that's what I delved into in occupational segregation. Which protected groups are more or less likely to be employed in certain titles? And then the third one is from yet another report on personnel actions, movements. What do patterns of promotion indicate about the potential for adverse impact? So we can start to ask these really in-depth questions. Okay, the other project that we're working on that's related to accessing evidence is actually we collect so much data as part of the audit process, so much really rich qualitative data, and we want to be able to do something with it. We want to be able to use it to look at best practices overall and see if they're related to each other, see if they're related to any of these indicators that I'm going to talk about. So the first step here is to collect the data, is to actually figure out which data we're using answers which particular standard. We have been doing this all along, but this is sort of a final master list going through this. And then we can use this to see where there might be redundancies, but then also take the data, code it from qualitative to quantitative, and turn it into something that can be aggregated. So we can see what % of agencies are doing this particular thing or rating this particular way on this indicator.
Okay, so, can I bring it first a little more? So what I wanted to be able to do was, we collect so many different types of data that we wanted to quantify the qualitative data that we collect so that we can come up with sort of a scoring system for agencies. So let's say we're trying to figure out whether or not an agency does training. And we collect different types of data that may tell us that. We sort of triangulate the data. We say, okay, they said they did training, they have a curriculum, but do they have, sign-in sheets? And then we say, okay, it paints an entire picture. But we wanted to do this for all of the pieces, the data collection tools that we have pertaining to each standard, which I think it's about 9. No, it's the questionnaires, 9 questionnaires they do. We have a lot of data collection tools. We have document requests, we have questionnaires, we have surveys, and then we have the quarterly reports that agencies give us, which the charter says that they should give us. But we wanted to say, okay, where are the redundancies, which we already know, but some of it is for triangulation. But what's the most important pieces of data, I guess? So if we're talking about training, we might say the agenda is great, but the sign-in sheet is really shows us that training was done. So we may rate the sign-in sheet a 10, and let's say an agenda maybe like, I don't know, 7, for instance. With that, we can then start to give the agency sort of a grade for how well they're doing and how well they're maintaining the data, which will tell us, okay, if this agency has a high grade in this area, then this is maybe one of the agencies that we need to look at in terms of implementing best practices and say, okay, this is how the other agencies can get a good grade. So this is what we're doing towards that end. There's a lot of looking at what we do and then quantifying qualitative data so that we can get to the point where we can say, okay, this is like a score that we can give the agency. Anyway,
Thank you. Okay. So, again, we can answer some of these questions where one Shree's just brought up, but what types of recruitment practices lessen underutilization? So we can look at the best practices gathered from our audit data and compare it to these indicators of underutilization. How might types of policy, again, we might rank different policies that agencies have. How might they be related to the frequency of discrimination complaints? And then what do agencies demonstrating best practices have in common with each other? Are we seeing some clustering there in terms of things that might determine overall success?
I think that first question is fascinating about which types of recruitment practices lessen underutilization, because I definitely think that there could be some direct correlations, but it also could be in the recruiter. Right? So you may have to replace it as a really good recruitment practices because they have a Latino woman who's doing recruitment. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, we should make sure we document that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next project, check my notes here. So we're also, as much as we're looking at what we're gathering from the ground in terms of all of the audit data, we are also using all of that seeds data to create indicators, right? So I mentioned an indicator of underutilization, that's one of these. So what we have here is a chart of 4 agencies, and we have their indicators on, their scores on various indicators. So the first, Black underutilization of Black people, occupational segregation between white and Black employees, and I'll explain that in more detail what that means in the next section. And then the rate of promotions for white people. Right now we have, you can see the ... we have probably about 10 or 11 of these indicators. And then they get an overall score, which is just an average at this point. So, if you are interested in if you're going to be looking at the overall score in terms of where you want to focus your next audit, the ones that have sort of the highest score, the highest risk of noncompliance, you might look at the agency on the second row and the agency on the fourth row. You can see 57.3 and 42.5 as their scores. But maybe you're interested in the score on just a particular indicator. So maybe you're interested in, you see those 200% under white promotions, that means 100% of the promotions went to white people. If you're interested in that particular indicator, you might look at instead at agency 8 and agency 17, or those two.
You don't have Hispanic?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, this is just
just
a sample.
Just a sample.
Oh,
of what we, yeah, I have it for.
No, I just wondered.
Yep.
Yes.
Black, Hispanic, and
Yes.
Asian. Yeah. For all of those different kinds. So with segregation, with underutilization, promotion, all of them. Okay. Right, that's what I was explaining there. So if you're looking at overall score, you might look at the second and fourth to focus in on in the audits. Or if you're looking at promotion, you might look at the third row here. Okay, so some sample findings. So this first one, and this is using all the data that I was just talking about. This first one is occupational segregation. So occupational segregation is measured by something called the dissimilarity index. It's the same index that we use to measure residential segregation. So what it measures, you get a number between 0 and 100, and what it measures is the percent of people who would have to move jobs in order to make their representation across all jobs even. So it's the same as in residential segregation, the percent of people who have to move neighborhoods in order to make their percentage even across all neighborhoods. So it's the same, it's analogous. So what we have here, so I ran this based on the workforce composition report for all titles in the city. So I looked at all the titles in the city at once, and then I did another analysis looking at each agency. So this is looking at for the whole city. You can see on the little thermometer there that the four indicators of occupational segregation, so between white and Black, white and Asian,
Turn this damn thing off. I put power off.
and between white and Hispanic. So you can see the 3 indicators of occupational segregation by race, and then the 1 indicator of occupational segregation by gender. So they're all landing in what's called the moderate range. The 2 at the top are high moderate, and the 2 at the middle are sort of low moderate. Obviously, we would want the indicators to be much lower. Moderate means that, so that means that 58% of white people would have to move jobs, or 58% of Black people, either one, would have to move jobs in order to have an even representation of each group across all the titles. That's a lot of people. So, and then what you'll see on the right is once I saw that there was a significant amount of occupational segregation, I wanted to look at which titles were which titles were highly concentrated for each group. So about 30% of men were in just 3 titles of all the titles, and that's not a big surprise there, those are big agencies. But you would expect that if that were the case, if these are the biggest titles, then that would be the same for women, and it isn't. So women are actually spread across, this isn't actually the complete list, they're spread across 7 or 8, 30%, same 30% of women are spread across about 7 or 8 titles. So that includes police officer and correction officer, which have some of the same benefits and salaries as the ones that the men are holding. But then you see principal administrative associate, it does pay pretty well, but clerical associate not as well. And so you see that's called vertical occupational segregation, where women are slotted into more clerical roles, and their only way of promotion is up through that same channel. School safety agent and school crossing guard at a lower level of pay, and also less stable.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So when the big report you'll see, I did this for all of them, all of the race and gender, both for the whole city and then also for each agency. Okay, so just a couple sample findings from the firefighter work. This is the first one, a positive finding. So the new databases allowed us to go deeper here and look over time what the composition of the firefighter title is. So you can see that red line at the top, which is percent of firefighters or white people, is going down, and the other colors at the bottom are slightly going up. Of course, this is a very slow decline over three years, and it's not yet at the level of representation of the city, which is a different composition. 33% white, 23% black, 29% Hispanic. Okay, so where is there potential? This last slide, I'll just touch on some potential ways to improve the situation. So there has been talk about recruiting for many years about recruiting from the emergency medical specialist titles, which are much more diverse, and bringing in people through the promotional route, the promotional exam. So what you'll see here is that the lighter purple is the EMT pool, so the emergency medical technician pool, and the darker color are the promotions. So you'll see for white people, for white people, you'll see that the promotions are, the percentage of promotions going to white people are much higher than the percentage of white people in the candidate pool. But then the opposite is true for black, Hispanic, and Asian. So ideally you would want those percentages to be the same, you want those bars to be the same height. Okay, that's it.
Wow, that's great.
That work is fantastic.
Very great.
It's certainly one way to find out what they're really doing in there. Interesting.
So that's the beginning, the firefighter stuff.
Oh, sorry, you're giving that to me.
No, that's the beginning of the report that we're talking about there. And some of those are in the, right, if you flip through, you'll see that some of those are towards the back of the report, where there are actually some recommendations.
Yeah, are we gonna get?
Yes. We're still tweaking some stuff, like I'm still going through some things in there. But you getting tests would be very interesting.
Really.
So,
Brings it to life, you know what I mean? Like sometimes
Yes.
it's hard because you really are hearing reports of reports, right?
right,
And so sometimes it's hard to like get hold of and see its impact and see, you know, its relevance, and this is like, it
Right.
brings it to life in really short.
right. And I just want to say this is the reason for the research unit, I think, is going to really help us look at data in meaningful ways. We do audits, but then what else can we do with the data that we're
Yeah,
collecting? And so this is like, it's just been like a dream come true. Really? No, seriously, because I think everything that we've been doing is coming to the forefront now in these reports. And when we start to collect that that table that we showed you with the finding, with the standard and the data collection tools, the relevance of that is to have the analysts hone in on what data is important during an audit, and to make sure that we're collecting that data. Make sure that if agencies don't answer those questions, that we get them to answer the questions, because we're going to be
Are you
using the
doing this
data.
now already, or
For other-
this is something for the future?
This report?
No, the report, what we're talking about right now.
No, this is what we're doing this now.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Right.
And what are the head of the agency saying about this?
Well, we haven't, it's not completed.
Well, that's
Right.
why, that's what I was asking. Okay.
So,
That's
more to come.
fantastic.
Yeah, more to come.
I did just want to point out that you have in front of you, so for each of the big reports, we like to, except probably not for the firefighter one, for each of the big analyses, we like to do a little research brief as well. So that's just a little white pager front and back.
Oh, okay.
Showing, that actually gets into the agency data a little bit, comparing the agencies with each other by size.
Oh, okay.
And then on the back, if this is going out to individual agencies, on the back there's a little tutorial about how they can calculate the dissimilarity index for themselves.
A lot of good work there. Makes more sense. Find out what they were doing in there.
Very good, that's very good. I had just one small suggestion, is that I think there's like a graph in there where it's like shades of purple. It's like if you project it or you print it in black and white, people can't see it, and it's like just more color difference.
Oh.
Being on the older end of the spectrum, it's like you can't, it's hard to see sometimes even in the color, and it's like people will print it in black and white.
Right.
It's true.
For the color one, it's definitely easier to
Or the agent.
Okay, so these are the things that we're working on in the research unit. We also have just finished first round, or first and second round interviews for another research person.
Great.
So we're really trying to focus our energy right now on the research part of the agency. I think that's going to be great.
And it brings to life all the work that you all are doing.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Yes.
possible to all of you.
Okay,
So
so
it makes a lot of sense. Really get the information that we're looking for. That's very great. Okay, so,
My apologies, everybody, I have to be at a meeting at 11, so that's why I'm packing up. I did not mean to be disrespectful.
no,
okay, so everybody in agreement with the research unit report, because I thought that was fantastic.
Right?
Yes.
So,
Okay, all right. Our new business?
No new business.
No new business? Okay.
to the next meeting, do we know?
Are you sure?
Next meeting?
Because you have.
Mohini,
The
can
next
you,
meeting?
I think it's November 3rd.
Yeah, can you
Is
send
the
it
next-
again?
next
I
meeting.
don't know about what I'm doing wrong, but I seem
Yeah.
to, every meeting's a surprise. I'm like, this is not a surprise, Arva, that you're on the EPC. And I'm just literally like,
Did you say November 3rd?
I don't know why it's a surprise.
Okay, I got
Okay.
it in my calendar. Okay,
So
great.
when are we
The
gonna
next
have the
meeting
next
is
meeting?
November 3rd.
It is
November
November
3rd?
Okay.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. Then we adjourn. This is a wonderful meeting, great, fantastic, you're doing a great job.